Hi, and welcome to the podcast Spring Break Edition. Joining you here from the Philip Chosky Theater at Carnegie Mellon University. As usual, we're going to talk about some articles from the Green Page, which you can find at cmuptm.blogspot.com. And our first article this week is...
Wait, we didn't introduce ourselves.
Oh,
the most important part.
You're Andrew.
I'm Eddie Cantor. Hi.
I'm Cher.
Clearly.
And I'm also Cher.
These are our spring break alter egos. Thank you for playing along. Let's see.
Our first article is from Backstage. It's called Equity Unveils 99-Seat Plan Calling for LA Actors Minimum Wage, and it was written by Sean J. Miller.
Sean J.
On my birthday, February 9th.
Thank you, Sean.
He
I'm
was
going to take
thinking
that off
about
now. That's all
That's good.
there's to say about it. Yeah, from sunny LA. So a bunch of years ago, Equity put together this special contract for Los Angeles theaters. For theaters that have 99 or fewer seats, and you have a sort of range of ticket prices from like $1 to $65 for seats, because actors were not, allowed under the equity rules to work for such places, basically, and LA theater was dying. So they created this special contract, and it turns out that 20 years later or so, it doesn't seem to be working out all that well for some of the actors.
Well, yeah, for the actors. Yeah.
And stage managers specifically. And it's kind of crazy, so in the lowest class, Class C or whatever theater that has an average ticket price a maximum ticket price of $18 and 60 or fewer seats in their theater, a performer can get paid a stipend of $7 per performance for a show, which is
Rough.
crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that was weird or interesting about this is that one of the guys pointed out, one of the people who run the theaters was talking about that $7 kind of makes sense if you have a cast of 60. He's like, we can pay more if we only do 2 people plays, but what happens once you have a bigger cast?
Right.
And what I was thinking at that point, it was like, I totally understand what you're saying. So why don't you do smaller shows? Like,
Right.
Why
Right.
don't you do shows where you can treat people a little better and not get so far out of scope that you can't?
Because, if you're paying someone $7 for a show, they're going to be bitter. And,
Yeah.
not be feel like they're being cheated, and that's not going to make for, a good environment or a good show.
But I wonder also, I have some friends who live in LA and who work in some of these 99-seat theaters, and some of them are actually against the changes because they're saying, well, this is going to kill
Right.
these theaters,
A
and
lot
I
of it.
love them and I want them around.
And maybe this is a perfect time to introduce the second article, which
Yeah.
is by the same guy, by Sean Miller, in the same,
It's also on Backstage.
also backstage, entitled...
It was written the next day, on February 10th, and it's called LA Theater Producers Say Minimum Wage, quote, impossible.
Right, and making a lot of the arguments that you just made about it's fine to up the wage if you're only doing 2-person shows, but basically what you're doing if you do this is limiting the kinds of shows we can produce, the kind of work we can produce in our theaters.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of agree with you. If that's what you can afford to produce, then that's what you should produce. You shouldn't use the fact that people need to earn a living wage in order to decide that, what type of work you produce. You tailor what you do to what you can do.
Yeah, it's
Right? You
what's
have
possible.
a different type of budget. You do a different type of show.
Yeah. And $7, I was just like, that feels like, at that point, I would rather earn nothing.
Right.
$7 a day?
Yeah,
No,
a
per show,
performance.
Per
So
performance,
it's
yeah.
essentially, per day. And it's like, well, I personally, I feel like I would be insulted by $7. I would rather
Right.
have nothing, or cool perks, or a great tax write-off, or
Or
something.
a fun mug.
Yeah, honestly, a Beanie Baby, something.
One of the things that I hadn't thought of that is in the first article is a quotation from a local actor who was actually supporting, like you say, supporting the $7 thing, saying basically that actors in LA often use these types of theaters as their sort of acting gym.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
they're not really going there in order to get paid. They're going there to hone their craft, work on their, work on what they do.
Yeah.
And the pay doesn't really matter. And I guess I'm sure that's true. And maybe you get you get your name on the street. There's
Yeah.
lots of things that you get paid with aside from money.
Yeah.
But really, so okay, let's do the math. $18 a seat, a 60-person theater. That's pulling down around $1,000 per show if you're selling the house out. right? So $7 is like less than 1% of that to each of your actors.
Right.
I don't know if I think that 99% of your budget, more than 99% of your budget, okay, so that's not quite fair. So say you've got a 5-person show, that's 95% of your budget that isn't going to pay your talent.
Right.
Does it really cost 95% of the money you're taking in to run a small
Yeah.
theater program like that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I mean-
$18 a seat in a 60-seat theater is only $1,080.
That's what I said, yeah, 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
Around-
you did?
around
okay.
$1,000.
Oh, I thought you said 2,000.
Nope,
No,
around
sorry.
1,000.
I mean,
It's
but that
it's
is kind of
Great
Quick
mental
math,
math.
quick math, quick
I
math.
had to use my computer.
Oh my god. But that is like kind of what's tricky about this is you're like, I feel what's difficult about this is I'm sure there are some small theaters with some great people trying to make some art with people who
Right.
want to participate in it. And there's probably other theaters that are taking advantage of that same kind of,
Right.
those same kind of rules.
Yeah.
So it's like to come up with blanket laws for any of this is going to be tricky because there are people I would work for nothing if it's like, listen, we have no money, it's a great project, I'm
Yeah.
passionate about it and I love you and I want to do it.
Right.
And then there's this, people who are putting on something I don't care about, who want to pay me nothing, and I'm like, you get out of here.
And it's sort of like, if you want to, as an actor, if you want to do that, then
Mm-hmm.
it's your prerogative. You
Well, and
should
that's
be
the
able to do
whole
it.
impetus behind the special contract anyway. So
Right.
like Equity set this up specifically for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's interesting to see how it's playing out now that people might actually, in a different type of economy, need to make that money, need to make even just $30 a performance, no big deal, right?
Yeah.
So
And
this
I do agree. Well, I was just going to say that, when you're saying, really is $7 all we can do when you have this, you're making $1,000 a night, how much is your rent? How much is your overhead really? I was thinking, how much does toilet paper cost? Could you just say, we don't have a bathroom and pay them more? Could you just say, you know what I mean? It's could you not print out the tickets and give them a
BYOTP.
little, right? That's just our spring break,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's maybe they're doing all they can, but I'm kind of also could you cut elsewhere instead of?
I don't know.
on
I'm
your
sort of
talent? I
inclined.
don't know.
Maybe I'm naive, but I'm sort of inclined to think that, I'm sure, like you said, there are people who own these theaters that are, they're taking advantage of their talent. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there are also plenty of them who would love to pay their actors more.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I
think
mean?
there's both. I think there's people who are struggling.
Well, no one's keeping them from paying them more. Let me point that out, right? So this contract doesn't mean that you can only pay them $7. That's a
Right.
minimum stipend.
Right, of course.
So and that's the other thing that this article doesn't go into at all is that really the going rate for those actors, or is that just the bare minimum? How much is this really a
Oh,
problem?
that's true.
But Equity thinks that it is, because this whole thing is coming out of a rollout that they're doing where they're talking about revamping these rules, and actually they have reached out to LA theater producers asking them for feedback about what kinds of things they'd be willing to do. So it's going to play out in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll keep an eye on it through the Green Page. Next, we have the article about Live Nation from the Washington Post, How Live Nation Exploits Low-Wage Workers to Stage Its Rock Concerts by Lydia DePillis. And a real article from the Washington Post. Thank you. Thank you, Green
Yeah.
Page.
Thank you so much. You guys did it.
This, yeah, thank you.
Took
It's
a
a
while.
great
This
article.
was actually really dope. So basically, what's going on is IATSE, which is the am I saying it right? IATSE
That's IATSE.
is the International Association of.
I said
Theatrical
OTSE.
stages, electricians.
I was like, yes, it's OTSE.
I thought you said Yahtzee.
No.
It's Yahtzee. Okay, so anyway, the International Association of Theatrical Stage Employees is not happy, and the reason for that is because so labor contractors, like the one discussed in this article named Crew One, have a bad habit of they staff rock concerts and festivals throughout the South, and they have this bad habit of hiring stagehands who they make work long hours with no breaks or poor pay, and if they're not working long hours, they're working ridiculously short shifts, which aren't even worth the $40 you get at the end of the day. And they also often are being sort of kind of saddled with inadequately trained crew. So they're trying to, unions like IATSE are trying to raise awareness about this and to kind of highlight the discrepancy between the high profits raked in by promoters and contracted labor
Production
contractors,
companies, yeah.
and then the actual laborers who put on these shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's, I don't know. So they talked to this one woman who worked some really long shift at $10 an hour, I think, or something like that.
At Bonnaroo.
At
At Bonnaroo, in pretty bad conditions. And the thing that I think is important to point out is that she was paid as on a 1099 as an independent contractor.
Yeah.
Which she clearly was not.
Right.
Like, she was not a highly skilled employee. She wasn't deciding when to come to work and what to do and how to accomplish that job. She was being told what to do.
She doesn't arrive with
clearly
her
an employee.
her business. She doesn't
Yeah.
arrive with a huge set of
Right.
tools and accommodations. She isn't really an independent contractor.
Right.
You know, an independent contract, that implies that you have, you know, an infrastructure of some stripe behind you. It's like, she's showing up to work. you
And
know?
they, like, she's a carpenter, and they're like, okay, you're gonna go with lighting today.
She's like, I don't do that. And she was also talking about like how people they'll be on these sets that are fully electrified and they're doing things, and she's like, I didn't know what I was doing. You're rigging things that could kill people potentially.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we've
And
been
this was
talking
like
about that a lot
Arcade
here.
Fire.
Right.
It's not like, you know.
Not someone we wouldn't mind if they got killed. We would be legitimately upset
We'd
if
be
one of those guys
sad.
got killed.
Well, you know,
Yeah, well,
I mean, it wasn't one of the
sad.
two shares.
I
that
do
was on
find
stage.
Arcade Fire like a little bit cloying, but that's besides the point.
Let's not get into that today. We don't
So
have the
basically, this is it's a problem about representation. Actually, the employees, or not employees, the
Contractors?
contractors for Crew One actually did file for representation with IATSE.
Yeah, they want to be in a union.
Right, and Crew One has managed to push them off so far. Probably won't succeed too much longer because they're clearly in violation of the law.
Right.
And it's an interesting point that the article makes that really this, you know, if IATSE does get to represent these folks, it's sort of like Crew One then doesn't have a point to exist.
Right.
Because IATSE is essentially could act as a staffing organization for Live Nation as they pursue these concerts.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why Crew One doesn't want them to unionize.
You think? Yeah. But I mean, if you're not willing to A, train, B, pay people a fair wage, and C,
Provide safe working conditions.
do all the things that union work allows you to do, then yeah, go. I don't know. I'm a huge proponent of unions in general, so.
Yeah, but I did think it was interesting that they talk about this guy who does have a business, who's sort of a competitor of...
Yeah, Big Hammer Productions in LA.
Yeah, and he actually pays people, you know, good wages and gives them benefits, and he's like, well, this would essentially just be a competitor of mine and of this other company. He's like, well,
Yeah, but he's not in violation. I mean,
That guy, no.
Yeah, he's doing what you're supposed to do as like a conscientious employer.
well, exactly, but
Well, it's
that
just
like makes
another
me...
example of how like bad people ruin good things for everybody.
That's what I was thinking, is like, I wonder if it would come down to more, and they kind of do talk about this in this article, like, could it just come down to, like, these concert venues not hiring these terrible companies who
just like just
treat their
boycott
workers
Crew
poorly.
One.
Yeah,
Well,
like
and
why
I-
not hire this other guy, the big hammer guy, who seems to treat people fairly? You know, that's what.
Right.
Do we need? I mean, I'm happy to involve a union.
Well,
or
for one
not,
thing,
but it's
because
like,
that Big Hammer guy's out in LA and Crew One is in the South,
South,
so it's
yeah.
like different.
Well, I also think that
I'm-
this is definitely more of an issue. So Live Nation is a multinational corporation. They do
Right.
shows all over the country.
Right.
I know for a fact that in a lot of places where they do shows, the employees are union. So like
Yeah.
in San Francisco,
Oh, yeah.
what's it called? Sleep Train Pavilion or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and the other big outdoor whatever it's called. I can't remember. Those are all union houses.
Right.
I know because I've worked there.
Right.
And Live Nation doesn't get to choose whether or not they pay union labor there because the house is union. When you've got these festivals that just pop up and that they're not associated with like a brick and mortar type structure, and it's all production company stuff. They bring the stage, they bring the truss, they bring all that stuff, and they bring everything to do the show. There's really nothing to attach a union membership to necessarily. Maybe not even a city, the way union charters are usually associated with a city. We have Local 3 here in Pittsburgh because it's, the union for this city. I think it's probably a lot easier to get away with these types of infractions in festival environments that aren't necessarily within the, within the sort of under the umbrella of a union organization. organization. Anyway,
I don't know, you do wonder though if like it'd be possible, because like I know that I've been represented under, like briefly under I guess it's the New York Union when I've worked on like Broadway tours that have come through other cities. So it's like, would it be possible to like adopt a model like that where it's like you're kind of a part of a union that's like non-local specific? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I'm sure that's I'm not, this article doesn't go into what IATSE is really trying to do. It's like set up a chapter, what are they trying to do?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but we'll probably find out soon. I'm sure this will be back on the Green page sometime in the near future.
We'll see.
And we'll talk about it again after spring break.
Woo!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. Woo!
He's not excited
Kevin.
anymore.
Thanks for joining us for that segment. We'll be back with the business segment. That was, in case you didn't notice, that was the union segment.
Surprisingly, that wasn't the business
Of
segment.
spring break.
I mean, it could have been.
Spring
You'll
Break
see.
Podcast 2015. Have a great day, and we'll see you in a little bit for the next segment.